Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Side Hustle Seattle. Now, if there's anything that I've learned since being an entrepreneur is that you need as much time back as you can possibly get. And a lot of ways to do that is through automation. Now, I'll be honest in saying that I'm not always the best at automation. So I figured let me bring somebody onto the channel who can help show you kind of what are some ways that you can automate your business. So today I have Katie. And Katie is a remote online notary. She happens to work at Pro Notary, but she's also just an entrepreneur running multiple businesses and finding those ways to gain that efficiency. So, Katie, thank you so much for being here. Please give us your background, kind of just tell us why has it been important for you to automate your business?
Yeah. So my background, I worked a normal 9 to 5 for 10 years. And I had some pretty significant life changes where that wasn't really going to work anymore. I had a child and I wanted to be able to spend as much time as possible, with him. So I changed everything, to kind of make more time for myself. So in the very beginning, when I was running my businesses, it didn't really make sense, some of the things that I was doing. And so it was a very big wake up call when I figured out that I could automate specific things within my business. So that way I could save my time and do things that I actually enjoyed or, made sense. So that's how I got into it. And then once I started, I couldn't stop. So that's basically how I started with the automations. So the some of the things that I first started out, was figuring out scheduling. So for the most part, as a remote online notary or doing pretty much anything, when you are trying to meet with someone, if it is remote or not, trying to find out when the schedules will meet can take up so much time. So once I found out like a different type of software stack, I use Calendly. There's a bunch of different other ones, for scheduling, but I highly recommend that when you are starting out, you use some sort of scheduling tool because otherwise, relying on yourself to try and add in different tasks or different meetings. Don't rely on yourself, especially when you are first starting out or running your own business. Like, rely on something else to do that for you. So that way it's not so much weight on your shoulders when you're already trying to learn all of these different things as a new business owner. What kind of scheduling do you use usually?
Yeah, so Calendly is a big one. I think that was probably the
Mhm.
first one I started out with. I've been using Google Bookings now. I think if you already have a Google Workspace, like your own kind of email kind of tied to your business, then
Mhm.
you can get Google Booking site and have multiple booking pages, etc. And Google Calendar is what I already use, so it's already kind of pre-integrated. They have a free version similar to Calendly, so I like that.
Mhm.
But I did want to ask you, so you mentioned something called a tech stack. Now, for people who may not understand what that means, what's the general term of that?
So tech stack means basically, how you stack the different software so that way it does what you need to do. So when you are talking to someone that really, really likes tech, usually you can ask them like, what's your tech stack, depending on, your business. And then they'll most likely list, and just rattle off the different types of technology or software that they use within their business. So for me, I use, for my notary business, I use Pro Notary. So I'm partnered with Pro Notary for my notarizations. And then I use Calendly for my booking. I use, Sparkler for my website. And then they do a bunch of my automations for my Instagram and some of my social media. And then there's some others, but the tech stack really does help take up more time because originally I was trying to outsource with like VAs for some of the scheduling or, some of the things within my business that I didn't necessarily want to handle, like bookkeeping and things like that. And Calendly basically fixed that issue of the, um, scheduling. And then I added in workflows on the back end. So originally you can have the scheduling for Calendly. So let's say you book me for a notarization. And then what ends up happening is that once you book me, it will send me a text message and an email to me saying, hey, there's someone that booked you. You're going to have to be available on this time. It'll add it to my calendar, but then it goes one step further and adds it to their calendar, and it will email and text message them. So I don't have to set up the reminders. It reduced no-shows for me as a notary. But it also would reduce no-shows for small business owners or anyone that basically wants to make sure that the people show up for whatever it is that they're scheduling. Um, because I got so many no-shows and I was like, I can't keep doing this. I block out that time. That's the time that I can't take anyone else, and I was losing out on money. So by adding all of those reminders. So the workflow on the back end has when they book 24 hours in advance, I think 10 minutes before, and then some other things of like how everything works, how to get signed on, make sure that you bring XYZ. So it basically does something where it's called priming. So they're prepared before they even meet me because I've sent so many emails and text messages to these people. And I will say that there's a bunch of different ways that you can use Calendly. Um, I use mine for my notarization business, but you can also use it for sales or onboarding. So let's say you have a client that is interested in working with you. They go on to your website and then they book you. Um, what you would usually want to do, and I know that it sounds like a lot of work, but like once you get it handled, then it's like so much easier. What you would want to do is kind of give them an introduction to your business so that way it answers almost all of the questions. So that way, by the time that they get to you, they already know your whole entire business. So, you would do an introduction, the best way to work with you, some of the common pain points that they would have, just as a little bit of a, hey, this is me. And then they already feel like they know you by the time that they get to you, like get in front of you. So that works for onboarding and for sales. So
Yeah, I love
that's,
that. I love
yeah.
that suggestion, which is just like giving them all the information up front and kind of getting it out the way in the nicest way possible. Because like I said, like especially with notaries, the longest part is getting somebody into a session. It's the initial question. So why don't we just take that out of when we finally meet or first meet and actually just do it when I'm sending you the information in the beginning. And like I said, I like the personal touch, right? Especially if you can do a video. It's like, hey, you've seen my face. I'm a real person. I'm not going to scam you. And here's what to
Mhm,
expect. So I love that. Now you mentioned Calendly. We've been talking about booking a lot, but what other
mhm.
ways have you found, like what other tools have you done to successfully kind of automate parts of your business? And how have you seen that efficiency gain?
So another way that I use the tech stack is I do a lot of marketing through social media. So I think that it's important for the clients to be marketed to wherever they are. And then I think that there's about 500 million users on Instagram each day.
Wow.
Don't quote me, you're gonna have to look that up, but like, well, yeah, I don't think that's, maybe let's cut that out. But there's a huge amount of sorry. There is a huge amount of people that are on Instagram or social media, Twitter, TikTok, that go on there. And so I think that the way of marketing is definitely changing. So what I've done is I've turned my Instagram into a sales funnel.
Love that.
Um, so for mine, it's a little bit of a different use case, but in general, what I found to work is that you make your Instagram targeted towards your demographic of whatever you want. So if you are let's say a personal injury lawyer, you would market towards people that have just gotten into a car accident. So you would lead with value, like, this is the things that you would need to do after your injury. Like, this is how you make sure that you get the most money from, the insurance company, and just like interesting things that they would want to listen to or find out about. And then they follow you. So what I've done for my Instagram is I'll lead with value. So I'll say, if you want to learn more about XYZ, comment join. And so once they comment join, I've linked it to my website, which is through Sparkler Digital, which is an automation. So you have to set up the automation, but basically it's a trigger. Triggers are basically like if then when. So let's say you do something and then it's a waterfall effect as to what happens after that. So you comment on my Instagram where it says join, my website is going to automatically find that because I've done work on the back end, and it's going to take that and then send out whatever link that I would want to do. So like for a notary, what you would be able to do is say book, and then it would automatically send a DM to that client of my Calendly, and then they can book that way. So it's very much a web work. So that way it takes less stress and less time off of me. And you can just basically get bookings in your sleep. So that's very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that because I'm one of those people, I see that all the time, right? And I'm sure a lot of you guys watching have seen that too, where somebody's like, comment XYZ and let me send you my recipe or whatever it is. And in my mind, I'm like, they must be going through every single comment, DMing these people, like, because I've always wanted to do
Nope.
that on something, but I'm like, I don't have the time. I'm gonna miss you.
Uh-uh.
I didn't realize it was automated until recently when you first told me, like when we first met, and I was like, blew my mind, but makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. And I love that because again, it's just another way to like take that work kind of out of your plate. And I did look up how many visitors are on Instagram, and you are right, it is 500 million. So
Okay.
yes, that is absolutely. So how do you go about when it comes to there's so many tools out there, right? And I think that ends up being a big blocker for people because
Hmm.
there's so many things to choose from. How do you choose which one is right for you?
So really honestly, it kind of depends on what you are looking to do. Sometimes it makes more sense to go with the user friendly. So if you have a bunch of people that have really good reviews, it looks like it's a good software and it's easy to use at a lower price point. Um, Maybe start out with that
Mhm.
and just kind of work your way up, because if you try and start with some of the harder stuff, it's going to not be that good of a time.
Yeah.
Because some of it is not user friendly. Like you have to be very tech savvy to be able to set these up. So like I use Go High Level for my automations with Instagram, but a good way to start instead is just to use ManyChat. So ManyChat is a different software that I would recommend for people that are just starting out, because they make everything really, really easy to use. So they'll build it for you. Sometimes they have AI that basically is like, okay, tell me what you want, and then I'll make it for you. So it does seem like it's beginner friendly. And then you can set it up. So like, let's say you have something where you make a reel or you make a post and it's like comment join or comment book to get your booking. It'll automatically do it on the back end. So the hardest part is usually getting everything kind of set up in the very beginning. And there's a bunch of different tutorials as to like how to get everything set up.
Mhm.
Um, and I think sometimes you just have to push through it
Yeah.
and get it set up, because like imagine how nice it is sometimes for my Instagram, because like for Instagram, you post it once, but they still push it whenever. Um, if someone finds it and then just puts book and then they book without you having to do anything, it's so nice. Because I'll be hanging out with family, or I'll be just at the library, doing book time, and get bookings without necessarily having to talk to anyone because my Instagram is doing it for me. So it's worth it to get it all set up.
Yeah. And I kind of want to go back on something that you said. So you had mentioned, there's obviously kind of two ways. You can go the user-friendly way, which is a little bit, maybe it may be a little less customizable, but it's a lot easier to use and a lot more palatable for people who are just getting into it. And then there's like the highly customizable, highly tech savvy version of it. Now,
Hmm.
I was going to ask you, what are some of the common mistakes you see when people are trying to do automations? And it may be that they, maybe go to customizable when they don't have to, but is there anything else that you've seen that people make mistakes on?
So sometimes I see, and like this is something that I am also guilty of, is that like my go high level, so my tech stack for my website will do pretty much everything that you would possibly need. But I didn't know that in the very beginning because it's so high level that I had no idea. So I did ManyChat, I did Calendly, and technically that software will replace it.
Hmm.
But since it's so easy for me to use the other ones and I didn't know about that software, um, that I just paid for all of it all at the same time. So once you get to a point where you kind of know what you're doing and you can afford it, because like I couldn't afford the go high level when I first started. So like just start where you're at. Um, but it makes more sense to start small and figure out the different little automations and then
Yeah.
kind of build up and learn one system well and then move on to the next one instead of trying to learn like three different systems, because that's usually what I tried to do and it did not work. So
No,
yeah.
I think that's good advice. It's kind of like with anything, it's like analysis paralysis. You're like, oh, there's 10,000 things I can automate. Where do I start? And you just never end up starting. So like, think of the thing that's most pressing for you in your business that's taking up the most time, and then kind of go from there. And that actually
Mhm.
segues into my next question. How do you determine which tasks should be automated and which ones you want to have maybe a little bit more oversight on?
Yes, so that's a really, really good question. And it kind of depends on your business.
Mhm.
So if you have a business that has a lot of different variables, that is different all the time, you would not want to automate that. So if you have something where like you have to quote your clients and it's going to be a different number each time, don't automate your QuickBooks and don't automate your billing, because you're going to have to do that manually. There are some things where if you have a repetitive task all the time, definitely set that up. So for like Calendly, if you are going to book them for a onboarding or if you book them for a specific service and you know that you're always going to send them a thank you, automate the thank you. If you
Yep.
know that you're going to send them a Google review request, automate that. So it's something that is not going to need your input, or like if you're doing words, definitely do that. But repetitive tasks that you have to do over and over again. So if you do it more than twice a day, kind of think about it and see if that's something that you can kind of outsource to automation.
Yeah, 100%. And I am, of course, getting that 10-minute warning from good old Zoom because I am on the free
Yep.
version. But no worries, we should be able to wrap it up in that time. So,
Sure.
you talked about a sales funnel, right? And you specifically talked about, when somebody says book and doing all that. But obviously, in order to do that, you need people who are actively engaging with your channel. Do you do
Mhm.
anything, or your Instagram, your social media? Do you do anything to initially get that business and to get people to interact with your business?
Yes. So what you're describing is most likely a lead magnet.
Hmm.
So for that, you usually want to incentivize the people, whoever it is, to engage with you because they don't always want to book with you. Sometimes they just want some information or, to kind of engage with you so that way they can interact with you a little bit before they decide to talk with you. So for the lead magnet, basically what you would want to do is whatever would incentivize them. So you could do coupons, you could do specials, you could do information that they would want, you could do freebies or calendars, basically anything that they would want to know about. Like I know realtors that do lead magnets of things to do around the town for that month. So it's just kind of knowing your target audience, building something that they would want, and then telling them like, hey, I'll have this, but just comment XYZ. And then that way they can get it sent to them.
Yeah, and it's nice. It's kind of a twofer, right? Because one, when people are commenting on your page, it kind of is like a SEO kind of thing, right? So you start to get more
Mhm.
people that engage because you already have people engaging. And now you have
Yeah.
people in your DMs that you're messaging, and those are potential clients, and it's kind of just like self-fulfilling at that point.
Hmm.
Now, I want to ask you, so if you had to build your ultimate beginner-friendly tech stack, let's say, like you're like, okay, these are like to start out for any just generic business. These are probably the four things you want to start to look into to automate. What are like the four things? And if you had a recommendation of software, if you don't, that's okay. But what are like the four things?
Yes. So I would definitely recommend a scheduling software in general. So I would do most likely Calendly and then start to build out your workflows and automate that. So that way you don't have to work as hard. The next thing that I would definitely do is build out some sort of ManyChat. So for your Instagram, so that way it's an autoresponder and start doing that. Um, the other thing that we didn't really talk about, but Canva. Um,
Yeah.
Canva is something that I use all of the time. I think that it is not talked about enough for small businesses, but people are very, very visual,
Hmm.
and Canva can do so much
Yeah.
stuff. Like it can make your own website, you can make reels, you can make PDFs, you can make
Hmm.
presentations. And it also pairs with AI. So I would definitely do that. And then last but not least, I would definitely invest in ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So ChatGPT is the AI language learning model that you can use to put in almost any problem, and then it will output your basically dream outcomes. So you can also ask it for tech recommendations and it will output. So let's say, I have this issue within my business. I do
Hmm.
this too many times and I want to outsource it. And then it will tell you like, different things that you can do. So it's almost like a business coach without needing to pay for a business coach. So,
Yeah, no, that's actually a great suggestion. It's like Canva has been my best friend. I'm terrible at like visually create like copywriting, terrible, visually creating stuff, just terrible. And so Canva, like once I started using it, has like changed the game for like thumbnails,
mhm,
for PDFs. I use it for so many work presentations. It's just been
yeah.
fantastic.
Mhm.
And then saying ChatGPT can't go wrong. Now, I want to end it off with if you had one piece of advice to give small businesses, entrepreneurs looking to get started, and then just how can people get in touch if that's something that you want to offer?
Sure. I would definitely start small and kind of think of where it is that you're at as far as investing money within the software. So you want to make sure that you aren't expecting to if you're just starting out and you only have like two clients, don't already start thinking about how hard it's going to be when you have 100 clients, because
Mhm.
by the time that you get to 100 clients, you will get more skills, and then also more revenue to be able to kind of get to that point rather than kind of throwing your money away at some of
Mm.
this software that you might not be um, kind of equipped to use, and it might not be in your best interest. So start where you're at and then you can always build.
Yeah, I like that. Which is pretty much
Yeah.
just like obviously everybody has high aspirations for their business and where they want to be in the future. And so you
Mm-hmm.
want to your people, a lot of people think ahead, like, oh, well, maybe this is a little too much for now, but we'll get there. But it's like, okay, don't spend the money yet. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, build, get more money from your business, and then go from there. I like that advice. And then how can
Yeah.
people get in touch?
Oh, okay. So yes, I'm on social media. My Instagram handle is at Notary SWFL. I am on YouTube under my own name. It's under Katie Tremulis, Tremulis. And then I'm also over on Pro Notary. So if you wanted to go ahead and check them out, we are a remote online notarization software. And that is over at pronotary.com. And then also we have a YouTube at Pro Notary. So pretty much everything on our social media is through Pro Notary. So yeah, but I'd love to chat.
Katie, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. And do not worry, I'm going to leave all her information, everything she's talked about, all the companies she's mentioned will be linked under the description. I'll make sure there are overlays on the screen to make this easier. So do not worry. But thank you so much for having,
Thank you
like,
for having
yeah, I
me.
appreciate it. I've learned a lot and I'm going to implement a
Good.
lot of things. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.